Guinness Nigeria's first half profits declined 15.7% to 9.4 billion naira. That's compared to 11.2 billion naira a year ago. However, gross earnings rose to 65 billion naira from 62 billion naira about a year ago. For a look at those numbers, we're joined in the studio by Seni Adetu. He's the CEO of Guinness Nigeria. Seni, it's great to have you on the show today. We'll get to talk about the AFCON because I know Guinness was a major supporter of course, Nigeria's foray into that, and of course was successful. But let's come back to your numbers, and I think the first point to note is the impact of the higher cost of sales. It seems to be a little bit of a drag on your gross margins. Can you just speak to that point? Because like I mentioned earlier, we did see your profits down 15% for the first half.
That's correct. I think we're delighted that we grew top line by 5%. Yeah. And on the back of the flat growth that we recorded in the first quarter of the year, consolidated for the half year, we like to think that that's a creditable performance. But regarding the cost of sales, a lot of that is due to inflation that we got in the year. Yeah. We didn't fully recover that through pricing, even though we took a price increase sometime last October. And then there was also the impact of a mix in the sense that we've seen an expansion of the cans business, right, which tends to come with some high cost because it's one-way pack. Right. But overall, like I said, a good result from our perspective. Seen an improvement from Q1 to Q2.
Yeah, of course. I think some people did note that improvement, especially in the top line. But your thoughts about the Nigerian consumer, because you just talked about the fact that you did increase prices in October, but some suggest that the pricing power of many consumer companies in Nigeria is a bit weakened given the purchasing power of Nigerians right now. From where you sit and your engagement with consumers, given the impact of the increase in fuel subsidy, increase in fuel prices yesterday last year, of course, after the removal of the subsidies, your thoughts on the Nigerian consumer today?
I think what you've just said is absolutely correct. We are seeing a further reduction in the discretionary income of the consumer. Yeah. Not least because there's a lot more of their income that is going onto transport. Yeah. We are seeing that there's inflation even in housing, because typically when we talked about inflation in Nigeria, it was inflation around food. But right, with housing and transport taking a big chunk of people's incomes, we're seeing a reduction in sales. And I think that's also speaking to why the beer market is generally soft right now. Right. But notwithstanding, we're confident that this is just a passing phase within the industry and that it will certainly come back.
Well, certainly you're confident because I'm hearing that the $370 million investment has been earmarked for Guinness Nigeria. Can you describe the investment case considering the weakness we've seen in consumer spending in Nigeria?
Well, truth be said, we always had the investment in the pipeline before we saw the softening in the marketplace. Yeah. But then we would not be pulling that back because, again, we believe very much in the long-term viability of this market. Right. We are confident, like I said before, that the market will come back. And so this investment is actually going into capacity upgrade in our Ogba and Benin breweries, into brewing and into packaging, into putting one-way packaging in the facility, so for producing cans. So we'll stick to our commitment on that. Right.
So far, what we've seen, you're making a huge investment into the country. So there's clearly been a preference for organic growth by Guinness. We've seen some of your competitors grow inorganically by acquiring other brewers, but that seems to be nothing. That seems to be something that hasn't interested Guinness up till now. Will Guinness at any point consider any acquisitions, given the market conditions today?
I think we're uniquely placed in the sense that we have a very diverse and a real sort of quality portfolio of brands. And I can understand why some of our competitors will think that they need some acquisition to sort of improve their portfolio. But yeah, I mean, if there's any opportunity in the marketplace, we are open to it. We don't have a strategy that says we must never acquire. Okay. So, but you are in this market.
If you see a good deal.
If you see a good deal, you are in this market. I'm not sure how many more exist out there, but if there are opportunities, absolutely, Guinness Nigeria.
Quite a few of them have already been taken. Okay, now let's talk about the AFCON. Of course, Nigeria celebrating the victory. Yeah. I know Guinness was very aligned to it. Yeah. What's the likely impact of I anticipate some growth in sales during the competition on your Q3 numbers?
Well, first is to say that I want to congratulate Nigerians. Guinness believed upfront we were the only sponsor, the only notable sponsor that came out to support this team before they went to South Africa. Yeah. We're delighted that worked well. Regarding the impact on Q3, we expect that there will be higher consumption coming through just on account of the excitement that has been created. And don't forget that this is leading to the World Cup qualifiers.
Right.
So we're delighted that we are the partners of Super Eagles going into the future.
Can you give us any guidance, though, on the numbers? I don't know if you typically do that, but in terms of the second half of the year compared to the first half, what can we expect from Guinness?
I think clearly in terms of top-line growth, I would be extremely disappointed if we were not growing top-line faster than we have reported in the first half. Clearly that is our intent. I think the finance charges that have been the reason that our profits seem to be depressed will remain there for a while, just on account of the fact that we've invested, like I said, in equipment and facilities. But bottom line is that we have a very solid business, and the fundamentals of the business are even stronger than ever before.
Let's talk about brands. I know you've introduced a few brands in the last 1 year into the market. To what extent, and one of the things I think I've also seen in Nigeria recently is that it seems the Nigerian consumer is a little more sophisticated. Your thoughts about how, maybe you can even speak from your perspective on how those new brands have been received. I know there was one that seemed to be skewed towards women. That's correct,
and that's called Snap. And
right.
Actually, innovation is a big component of our strategic ports within Guinness Nigeria. Prior to Snap, we launched another brand called Dubik,
right.
which is a value brand.
Right.
And generally speaking, these new brands have been doing very well in the market, especially Snap. We're in 5 cities already, looking to expand nationally. And given the capacity that we've just expanded, that we have now, I think gives us the opportunity and the flexibility to be able to introduce new brands into the marketplace. And so you should actually watch that space and expect that Guinness Nigeria would actually introduce more brands in the second half of the year.
And if we're coming back to the discussion around sport, it's obviously a huge thing in Nigeria. The UEFA Champions League continues today. We know a lot of brands are aligned to sport. Talk to us about your alignment with the things that, if you like, the consumer cares about the most in a market like Nigeria.
I think if you take football, for instance, we think that there's a commonality between Guinness as a brand and football as a sport. And the commonality is that they're the number one passions of the Nigerian consumer.
Indeed.
So Guinness, is a big brand here, probably the biggest brand by value, biggest beer brand by value. Clearly, football is the number one passion. So we think that that's a good fit. But beyond football, with some of our other brands, we're looking at music.
Right.
So Harp, for instance, sponsors music activities in Nigeria. And the general thing is that we want to be consumer-centric. We give to the consumer exactly what fits into their lifestyles, and that's exactly the way we are playing the game.
Well, clearly you still have a good feeling about it if you're going ahead with this $370 million investment. Thank you so much, Seni, for joining us. Seni Adetu is the CEO of Guinness Nigeria, giving us some perspective on the first half numbers that were released yesterday to kick off earnings season in Nigeria.